Hello, I'm Tom Roper, a retired clinical librarian. In this video, I want to show you something about proximity searching, an extremely powerful tool we can use in bibliographic databases like MEDLINE. It's also the technology that sits behind an awful lot of the relevance ranking that internet search engines like Google use. If you're interested in an overview of the theory behind proximity operators, I recommend a paper by Keene, published in 1991, and you'll find the reference at the end of this presentation. You'll be familiar with combining concepts identified in a clinical question you're trying to answer using Boolean operators, and, or, and not. So cat and dog finds us those articles that mention both of them. Cat or dog finds us those that mention both cat and dog, and those that mention cat on their own and dog on its own. So in other words, everything that we've identified in this particular search. And then finally there's the not operator, cat not dog, to be used sparingly and with some care, because what that will do is to find you everything that mentions cat, but if that article also mentions dog, it will be excluded from your retrieved set. So even if it mentions it in passing, it's... So proximity operators, using the old favourites cat and dog, with these we can say to the database, find me all those records where the word cat and the word dog occur within n characters of one another. We can also, if we wish, specify the direction in which they occur. You can't do this in PubMed, but it is in MEDLINE and other databases, Embase, CINAHL and PsycInfo, that the NHS have access to through the native interfaces. The syntax to use, though, varies from platform to platform, and there's a particular heffalump trap, a very deep pit into which we may fall. More on that later. We'll need an example search. I've chosen one from the days when I was a real clinical librarian on barriers to communication in critical care units. How will we form these into a search statement? So we'll use both thesaurus terms and search in some text fields. For the sake of simplicity and comparability, I'm going to use title and abstract for these. I'll start in Ovid, but we will go and look at EBSCO and ProQuest in due course. So for our first idea, the idea of barriers to communication, let's look at how these actually occur in the literature. I've extracted these from the abstracts of some relevant papers that we already knew about. I've highlighted in red the word barrier or barriers, blue for work difficulty or difficulties, and communication or communication in green. In some of these examples, the words are quite close together. In some they're separated, in the last example, but by 10 words. All are relevant. We'd want to be sure that our strategy retrieved them, but a phrase search for communication difficulties would only retrieve one of these examples. So for this search, we choose some thesaurus terms. These are the ones I've selected from Mesh. We use something like this. This finds any text where any of the 3 words in the first set of brackets occurs in any direction, with the word communication and other words that begin that string, with up to 2 words intervening. This is Ovid syntax, and I've used a bit of truncation here. Then thesaurus terms for our next concept. Here we're looking for the ICU setting, so I have more searches that run in the title and abstract field. The first one is straightforward, but lines 2 and 3 again use ADJ, the adjacency operator, to find the words and variants in the first bracket near the words and variants in the second, with up to 2 words intervening. But different database platforms have different ways of searching using proximity. So in Ovid, as you saw, we use ADJ and a number, but EBSCO uses N for near, followed by a number, and ProQuest near, followed by a backslash and number. Let me show you this in the databases themselves, without the aid of a safety net. I'll use a very simple search, back to cats and dogs again. So, first of all, in Ovid MEDLINE, I have searched for cat ADJ dog in title field alone, and it finds me 1107 results. Please remember that number, there will be a test. In EBSCO, I have done the same thing. Here I have to put cat and dog in inverted commas, as otherwise EBSCO, trying to be helpful, will search for the plural forms as well. Once again, please remember that number. This time it's 1133. And finally, let's go over to ProQuest. And here you will see with slightly different syntax. So here it's n/3. It finds me 1135 results. Remember that number too, please. So what's going on? Ovid found us 1107. EBSCO found us more, 1133. And ProQuest found us 2 more than EBSCO, 1135. Yet each time we were searching exactly the same database. So the different interfaces are applying proximity operators slightly differently. Let's look at their help files. This is what Ovid tells us. They use the number in an ADJ statement to mean the number of words either term is from the other. I don't find this a hugely clear explanation, but it is quite helpful to know about ADJ1 and the fact that Ovid uses that. This is what EBSCO tells us. N5 finds the words if they are a maximum of 5 words apart from one another, regardless of order. Okay, that makes that's a slightly less elaborate statement, at least. I think we can understand what they mean by that. Let's see what ProQuest have to say. Now, for ProQuest, they tell us this. The n backslash syntax will find the 2 terms in any order within a specified number of words apart. The number 3 means 3 words. Okay, I think we know what's being meant here. I've a slightly easier formulation of this, which maybe we'll try thinking of it this way. In Ovid, cat ADJ1 dog finds cat dog. Cat ADJ2 dog finds cat any word dog. EBSCO and ProQuest, cat N1 or near 1 dog finds cat any word dog. So that's how it works. There is a difference and we need to be aware of it. If I change numbers in the ProQuest and EBSCO searches and reduce the number of words I've specified with the near operator from 3 to 2. So that was Ovid, we don't need to change that. Here's EBSCO. Let's edit that search and make it N2 dog. Save. And now it finds 1115. And let's do the same with our ProQuest search. So I'll make it near 2 dog, 1117. So we now have our search finding 1107 in Ovid, 1015 in EBSCO, and 1017 in ProQuest. Results which are much more comparable. They're not identical though, although ostensibly we're searching the same database simply through different platforms. And we've ironed out an anomaly in the way that the proximity operators work in Ovid as against EBSCO and ProQuest. So there are a couple of explanations for why we're still seeing discrepancies. And one is that there are different versions, or segments as they're known, of MEDLINE made available by the National Library of Medicine to database providers. Ovid are admirably explicit about what they offer. So if you look down here, that statement I've just highlighted tells you exactly the part of MEDLINE that I was searching today. Alas, EBSCO is much less forthcoming and simply tells me that I've been searching MEDLINE, and that's your lot. If I go to the detailed view, it just tells me a little bit more about that. More information doesn't actually tell me which bits of MEDLINE I'm looking at. The same, I'm sorry to say, is true of ProQuest. It simply tells me that I'm searching MEDLINE. If I go to About, it tells me something about MEDLINE, but not what the version is. So that will probably account for something. There is another reason as well. Different platforms may have different policies about when they add material to the databases at different times of day. So don't be surprised if you find minor differences in the number of results on what's the same database when accessing through different platforms. However, if you find major differences, something has clearly gone awry, and check again how your search has been executed. There are some other differences. I've tabulated them here. You'll see that 2 of the 3 interfaces have defined maximum number of intervening words. Quite why you'd ever want to use 99 or 255 is beyond me, but still, you can. In ProQuest, there is no documented figure, and their help desk was unable to tell me if there is one and what it is. Finally, how to remember which syntax to use in which database. Well, actually, etymology, as so often, is our friend. If you remember that adjacent is derived from the Latin adiaceo, to lie near, and that Ovid was a Roman poet writing in Latin, you can easily remember that in Ovid you use ADJ. The founder of Ovid, by the way, Mark Nelson, was a classicist. I still have a t-shirt somewhere from their British launch which held a quotation from Metamorphoses. And here is Ovid, exiled among the Scythians, portrayed by Delacroix. With EBSCO and ProQuest, I don't have anything as erudite. They both prefer the Anglo-Saxon near. So, I suppose if you remember that EBSCO with 5 characters in its name is shorter than ProQuest with 8, then you might be able to remember that EBSCO just requires the shorter term and number, whereas ProQuest requires something 1 character longer. That's an extra character, the backslash. So that's how to remember them. Latin adjacent for Ovid, N for EBSCO, N/ for ProQuest. You can also, as I said, specify order. In Ovid, ADJ without a qualifying number finds the terms to be in the order you've entered them, but without any words intervening. But in EBSCO and ProQuest, you can use numbers here. W within in EBSCO, or pre or P in ProQuest, followed by a slash and then a number, if you want them to require them to appear in an order. There's a frequency operator in Ovid as well, but that's something for another time. I have to say I very rarely use the order specifying tools. They're not in my view, that useful. One final caveat. Ovid advised against being over-elaborate, for example, going crazy with nesting when preparing search strategies. So while theoretically something like this ought to work, it's probably safer to split them up. So if you look at this, I've taken that statement there that we had and then made 3 different searches out of it, in each of which I combine one term with ADJ3 with a series of other terms. And we can see much more easily what's going on with those, and we can then OR them again all together when we're happy. I hope that's interesting and useful. As I try to show in these videos, there's hours of fun to be had when playing around in the databases. Do leave comments below and I'll respond, and let me know if there's anything else you'd like me to cover. In the next video, due out I hope early in the new year, I'll be covering the highly topical matter of search strategy peer review. In the meantime, thank you, have a good Christmas and New Year.